Whilst I have always primarily been a fan of the smaller, faster ships, notably frigates, destroyers and cruisers, that doesn't mean I don't enjoy flying some of the bigger ships available in EVE Online. Most notably recently, I've been having a lot of fun with each of the different Marauders. I've already covered the Golem on this channel, so it's about time that I gave a brief look at the Minmatar Republic's Vargur. I'm a bit of a Minmatar fanboy, and I just adore the concept of projectile turrets. There is nothing quite as satisfying as punching holes in the sides of your opponent's ships with several thousand tons of hot steaming lead. In today's video, we're going to be taking a brief look at the Vargur because the run that I did after several attempts, I still made several key mistakes on, and I will document those in the video as well. This fit definitely works for C5 ratting, and it makes a lot of ISK in a short period of time, but it's not without its risks. Ahoy there folks, I'm Captain Benzie and welcome back to another video for EVE Online. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at another one of the Tech 2 Marauder battleships, this time around the Minmatar Republic's Vargur. Now the Vargur has long been one of my favourite battleship hulls. I love the Tempest design, that long thin prow, the beefy backside to it, and the two heavy radar arrays on the top and bottoms like fins. Also, I love the way that the Bastion mode looks on this when activated, but you'll get to see that later. It is just so badass, and the Viridian expansion has somehow made it even cooler. Now, I've showcased the Golem before on this channel, running through C5 core garrisons, including taking out the Drifter. In this video, we're going to be doing the exact same thing, but with the Vargur. This is the one that I want to be flying more. I just found it easier to get into the Golem a little bit earlier on. Now, this is not going to be the definitive Vargur video. That will come later on once I'm a bit more used to flying it. But I kind of wanted to showcase the fit that I'm using and show it in action to give sort of a starting point. I do make some mistakes in the combat demonstration section later, and I'm sure I could probably tweak this fit a little bit up and down depending on what you guys think, and leave me stuff in the comment section down below with your opinions on this ship, on the fit, and on how I play it, obviously accounting for the mistakes that I do make. Anyway, so if you do enjoy this video, please take that extra second just to hit like, maybe drop me a comment down below. Both of them are excellent ways to help support this channel. They cost nothing, they're really quick and easy, and it helps me out a whole bunch. If you do want to go the extra mile to help support me making content like this, you can do so by heading to my Patreon page, my Redbubble merchandise store, or my PayPal tip jar, all linked in the description as well. And I would, I'm trying to revamp some of those with some cool new merch, some cool new ideas for my Patreon and things like that, but I need your input for what you'd be looking for in return for those donations. Finally, if you haven't already used my referral link, that's in the description too. Get yourself 1 million free skill points, and you can come join the Catskull Discord to talk all things EVE Online, and maybe even consider joining our corporation. Anyway, with all of that said and done then, let's jump right in to talking about the Minmatar Republic's Vargur. First of all then, let's talk about the Vargur itself as a hull. It is a Marauder, which is a Tech 2 battleship. This means you are going to need to have Omega, and they are fairly skill intensive to train into. You're going to need to have a lot of skills ready to go in order to run this one. Now, the various Marauders were adjusted in the Viridian expansion. I'm filming this after Viridian, after those changes have gone into place, and the Vargur did have some notable ups and downs to it. It lost a bit of its shield, but gained some armor. It lost a bit of its shield booster bonus, but gained the armor repairer amount, as we'll see now. So first things first, when we talk about Marauders, we need to understand the roll bonuses, because one of these is absolutely vital. First of all, we have the usual battleship roll bonuses of the 100% bonus to shield extender hit points, 50% to armor plate hit points, and 5% to reinforced bulkhead hit points. The one that I want to talk about and focus here, though, is the ability to fit Bastion modules. Now, Bastion module is a very special module that is exclusive to the Marauders, and essentially when you have this active, you are locked in position for 60 seconds. It cycles on a 60-second timer. During its activation, you are unable to move, you are unable to turn, you are unable to warp, you cannot do anything movement related. It is a basically hold you in position. What it does in the meantime though is give you a massive shield boost bonus. Here you can see 100% bonus to our shield booster rate, so we're doubling the amount of shield boost we get from our shield booster. We get a turret rate of fire bonus minus 50%, so it's firing in half the speed, so we're getting 100% additional DPS out of our turrets there. We do get remote assistance impedance, negative 95%, which means it's very hard for someone to rep us. While we are in Bastion mode, you're going to be relying purely on your own reps. It does things to missiles and all of that as well. We get a little bit of extra range on our turrets, 25% fall off and optimal, which is really, really nice. Yeah, basically the straight up and down of this is that it is essentially a lock you in place, double your DPS, increase your range, and double your tank. That is what makes the Marauders so freaking powerful. Now, as of me making this video, there is only a Bastion Module 1, there's no Tech 2 or alternate versions, so that's the one you're going to be looking for, and it does have some pretty hefty skill requirements just for the module. So don't just look at the Marauder itself and go, okay, well, I can fly that. You need to make sure you can have the Bastion module as well, because a Marauder without a Bastion module is kind of worse than the Tech 1 and Navy Fleet issue variants, so the Bastion module is of vital importance. Anyway, back to the Vargur. We then get a roll bonus to large projectile turret damage, 100% bonus, so the 4 turrets we're using count as 8. We get a bonus to tractor beam range and velocity, and a 70% reduction in micro jump drive reactivation delay. We'll talk more about that later. Minmatar Battleship, you're going to need to have all the way up to 5. You cannot undock a Vargur without Minmatar Battleship 5, so you're going to have a 37.5% bonus to large projectile turret damage, that's on top of the 100% down here, and a 50% bonus to large projectile turret fall-off. Again, that's in addition to the Bastion mode as well, so there's a lot of extra range there, a lot of extra damage, really quite nice. The Marauder skill, which I've currently got trained to 4, I think I might have actually trained it to 5. I'll have to check that. Yep, I've got that trained to 5, so I've got Marauder at 5, that's giving me a 25% bonus to Shield Booster and Armor Repairer amount, and a 37.5% bonus to Large Projectile Turret Tracking Speed. Now, ultimately, I would strongly recommend getting this up to at least 4. Things are still a little bit hairy at 4, you can work with implants and things, but I strongly recommend getting this to 5 if this is a kind of ship that you are going to be flying a lot. Very much the kind of vessel you want to dedicate yourself to if you can, but I am aware that the Marauder 5 skill alone is about 50 to 60 days worth of training. It is not a cheap or fast skill. Therefore, go with the 4 for the time being, but be aware 5 is really going to help you out. Now, this was changed in Viridian. Prior to the Viridian update, this was a 7.5% bonus just to the shield booster. Now they have dropped that down to 5%, but it's to both shield booster and armor repairer amount. And I'd love to see an armor tanked Vargur. I just don't think it's going to happen outside of PvP at this point in time. The other part of the Viridian update was that the Vargur lost a bit of its overall shields, but gained overall armor. They took about 800 hit points, 600, 800 hit points off the shields and put it onto the armor. Ultimately, that again makes it slightly weaker if you're shield tanking it, but it is still absolutely viable. We also lost a high slot in order to gain a low slot to assist with that armor tanking playstyle. This means that some of the fits that I've seen going around are not viable anymore because they don't have the high slot and they've got the additional low slot. But that does bring us nicely to talking about the fit, or rather the core Garrison fit, because there's also going to be a drifter fit that we use for fighting the battleship. Now, before I go any further, it should be noted that the main concept of this is that we use one fit for running the core garrisons as quickly and efficiently as possible, then we use a mobile depot, swap a couple of modules into the drifter fit, which we'll talk about in depth later, in order to take on the drifter escalation battleship that you can trigger toward the end of the core garrison site. Ultimately, if you really don't want to bother with a mobile depot, you can just use the drifter fit, and it will still clear the core garrison, it just does it a lot slower, so I do recommend having both fits on hand. Alternatively, you could use the Vargur for running the core garrison, then have a friend come in to destroy the drifter response. You move on to the next core garrison. When you're done there, they warp into you, they trigger the drifter, and off you go to the next site. You can do it that way. Heck, you could even use the drifter fit and do it the other way around. It's entirely up to you. But anyway, the core garrison fit. This is what we're using for running the C5 core garrison combat site. Looking at its stats here, you'll see we're sitting on 2,544.8 DPS with Bastion Module active. We are pretty cap stable at the top there. Things are pretty nice there, sitting at 49.4%, but we'll talk more about that in a moment. And we have some really nice shield regen going on. 577.5 HP per second with Bastion mode on, using just a single Pith X-type extra large shield booster. We also have a Pithum C-type multi-spectrum shield hardener. You can bling this up a little bit higher if you really want to. I don't see the need to bling this up higher than it currently is. This is trying to keep the cost down as low as possible. In inverted commas, it's still a 3 billion-isk ship, but it is what it is. Anyway, for the high slots first of all then, I'm running 800mm repeating cannon 2s. These have really good tracking, good accuracy, fall-off, and good optimal range. I'm using Hail L and Barrage L for the main part of the core garrison site. Hail for anything that is up close and personal, Barrage for anything that's at range. It's really that simple. We've also got Republic Fleet EMP Large and Republic Fleet Phased Plasma Large in the cargo hold. Those are purely for fighting the drifters. So if you're just going for the core garrison, you're not worried about the drifter, then don't worry about those bits of ammo. Again, more on that later. Our next high slots then are 2 Imperial Navy large EMP smart bombs. These have a 7.5 kilometer range, they do a good amount of electromagnetic damage, they are going to rip through any frigates that happen to get close to us. Unfortunately, all of the frigates in this site will orbit within 7.5 kilometers, so you can just tear them a new one with the smart bombs. Really quick, really easy way to kill them, means you don't have to worry about tracking and application and all that jazz, you just do what you need to do. It should be worth noted though that when you have both of these active, your capacitor stability does drop all the way down to 25% stability. Not particularly good. It halves the capacitor stability. You need to be careful about when and where you use these. Run them for the time they need to be run, then turn them off as soon as you no longer are hitting anything with them. The final high slot then is the Bastion Module itself, pretty much a given. You need that in the high slots. Without the Bastion Module, what's the point in flying a Marauder? Now, there did used to be one additional high slot, which a lot of people use for like an Energy Nosferatu. Obviously, we lost that high slot in the Viridian update. That moved down into a low slot, but we can get capacitor stability there as well, as we'll talk about now. So capacitor stability is going to be our next concern. In the mid slots, I've gone for 2 Republic Fleet large capacitor batteries. These are designed just to give you as much capacitor as possible and to try and hold you there nice and stable whilst you're being muted and running what you can. And in the lows, we've got 3 capacitor Flux Coil 2s. Again, that's just all about that capacitor stability. And as long as we don't have the EMP smart bombs running, we're doing pretty well. This is also twinned in the rigs, large capacitor control circuit 2, large capacitor control circuit 2. Anyway, beyond this, we then have a bit of application and a bit of survivability. For application and damage, we have a tracking computer 2 in here. I carry the optimal range and the tracking speed bonus scripts. Tracking speed bonus when you're using the Hail, optimal range when you're using the Barrage. If you really want to be hitting things at further out, you can kind of play around with those and do as you see fit. And then the 3 lows are all Republic Fleet Gyrostabilizers, just to push that DPS up even higher. The final mid slot then is a large micro jump drive. Essentially activate this, let it spool up, you warp 100 kilometers straight forward from where you are facing, as long as you're not scrammed, that is. Very useful if the enemies are sitting a little bit too far away and you want to get closer. At the start of a core garrison site, core bastion site, so no, it's core garrison, I'm talking core garrison. At the start of a core garrison, for example, you can align yourself to the sentry guns, you can then use the large micro jump drive to jump right next to them. They'll be about 60 to 70 kilometers away. That now suddenly puts you at about 40 kilometers the other side of them, meaning 30 to 40 kilometers, meaning you're now actually able to use Hail quite comfortably against them and kill them that little bit faster. Drones are in this fit. I carry 5 each of the Caldari, Minmatar, and Amar light drones. They're just for a little bit of extra DPS against the Drifter response battleship, so don't really stress too much about putting drones in this for the core garrison side of things. That 89 DPS just really isn't worth worrying about your drones and doing the drone control. Against frigates, you're going to be using the large EMP smart bombs anyway. I mean, I'm not saying don't use the drones, but just don't stress it too much, you know? If you happen to lose them in a site, it's not the be-all end-all. They're mainly there just to help pull the drifter down that little bit faster. Which does bring us rather nicely to talking about The Drifter refit. Yeah, if you're looking at this and wondering what's gone on, really not much. The modules are in a slightly different layout because of how I saved this, but actually only 2 modules have changed. Technically 3 if you include the ammo, because again, at this point, we're going to be using phased plasma against the Drifter's shields, swapping to Republic Fleet EMP for the Drifter's armor. I know it seems weird using EMP on armor, but that is how it works, and it's got a lot of shield, a lot of armor. It's going to take a long time to kill. You want to be utilizing those resistance holes. So the only 2 modules that have changed are we have lost the tracking computer and the micro jump drive, because we don't need either of them anymore. That Drifter is going to stick right on us and scram us, and the tracking computer isn't necessary. We're able to hit it quite comfortably. What this thing does do, however, is a copious amount of neutralization. So we've added a Thukker large cap battery. The reason for this is it has really nice resistances, it pushes up the capacitor stability that little bit higher as well. And alongside that, an Imperial Navy cap recharger, just to push that capacitor as high as we can. Now, we do lose a little bit of DPS, obviously swapping to the Republic Fleet down from Hail. Don't sweat it. That Republic Fleet is actually, Republic Fleet Phase Plasma and Republic Fleet EMP are actually going to do more damage than the Hail does. Your DPS may be lower, but they're striking the resistance holes better, which works out to higher damage. We do lose, obviously, a little bit of, as I said, the tracking and the jump drive, but neither of those are important. Use the drones as well, match it to whatever type you're using, so use Galente drones when you're going up against the shields, and then swap to the Amar drones when you going up against the shields. Really that simple. Now, this particular fit, as I mentioned, just to reiterate, you can run the entire site using just the Drifter fit. It's not ideal. You don't have the tracking computer, which means you're not getting as good tracking on the cruisers and things. You can't range a little bit further if you need to use the range script, and it means when you warp in, you don't have the ability to use the micro jump drive to get yourself closer to those turrets to kill those faster, or to battleships and that. You have to wait for things to drift to you a bit more. So it is well worth noting. It can be done, but it's a lot slower. But how do I know that it can be done? Because I'm an idiot, and that's exactly what I did. I'm warping here into a core Garrison C5 combat site whilst in the Drifter fit, and I hadn't noticed at this point. It's only here as I'm going to move the modules that I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm in the wrong fit, aren't I? Oh well, whatever, let's make this work. So normally what I would do is go into this site and immediately drop my mobile tractor unit here, and then I would align to that Orthrus Restless Sentry turret, the one that's at 75 kilometers. I'd activate the micro jump drive. Once that spools up, I warp 100 kilometers in that direction, which is going to put me 25 kilometers off the other side of it. Suddenly, those 3 turrets are much closer in range, so I can use hail on them, and the other ships are close enough that they're going to drift towards me anyway. Yeah, don't have the right fit though, so I can't do that. Instead, we're just going to go screw it, let's see how this works. Now, because I need to drop down a mobile warp disruption module later, medium mobile warp disruptor 2, in order to hold the Drifter in position, I can't drop the mobile tractor unit just yet, because otherwise I can't drop the mobile warp disruptor. That has to be anchored more than 5 kilometers away from any wreckage or an MTU or things like that. It's a mistake I make quite frequently, so I'm kind of proud of myself for not dropping the MTU at this point in time. Now, I've also got some friends sitting in this system with me. They are watching the wormholes and making sure things are nice and safe. We've got a fleet on standby, basically. C5 ratting, even if you're doing it solo, you do need to have some support nearby. With Bastion mode on, you've literally got up to 60 seconds before you can even initiate warp. You see someone on D-scan, all you can do is rat harder, basically. Anyway, so here we are. You can see I've got a load of frigates. I haven't bothered locking onto them. I've got the EMP smart bombs going. Those are going to be chunking through those frigates quite quickly, and I'm just chewing my way through everything piece by piece. The Awakened Sentinels, those cruisers, are the trigger for this particular wave to end and wave 2 to spawn in, so I want to kill those last. I'm going to take out a couple of them just for the simple fact that, well, they're there, and I want to take those out quickly. Then I'll go on to the Orthrus, then we'll move on to basically shooting at wave 2 when it spawns in. Now these turrets do take a little bit of time to kill. As you can see, that Orthrus is going down slowly, 71 kilometers away. I'm having to use the barrage for that. So just swap your ammo depending on what you're using. And of course, had I been in the right fit, I would have that tracking computer, which would really, really help right now. But I don't have that fit. With the death of this awakened sentinel, the first reinforcement wave, or wave 2, will arrive. Now this is where things get slightly trickier. There are 6 frigates, which are remote reps and Nosferatu, well, neutralizers, and 3 battleships that scram web and use newts as well. Now the frigates, you might think, well, okay, there's 6 frigates, you just wait for them to get close and you activate the EMP smart bombs, and that's them dealt with. Yeah, except that they're the trigger for the next wave, which is just awful. So I'm using barrage at the moment to try and take down one of those sleepless sentinels. Again, had I used the micro jump drive at the start of this anomaly, I'd be much closer to their spawn point and I could just be using hail and ripping through them faster. But no, we're in the wrong fit. As I said, using the core garrison fit, using the drifter fit for the core garrison is possible, it's just not ideal. It means you're using lower DPS ammo, you're having to wait for things to move into range, it's just awkward. Speaking of range though, you'll notice that pretty much all of the frigates are in range. I try to make so 5 frigates are in range, one of them is just outside. We activate the smart bombs. Why? Why do you want to have one of them out of range? Well, because I need at least one of these to survive so that I don't trigger wave 3. So I'm just going to sit here smart bombing away, doing my thing, but keeping an eye on the health of those 6 frigates. I need to ensure that at least one of them has more health than the others. Unfortunately, since they are also remote rep frigates, that does tend to quite frequently be the case. You can see the Emergent Keeper there, 4 from the right, has more health than any of the other Emergent Keepers, and that's perfect. It means I can just keep smart bombing and watch as everything else pops whilst that one stays alive. But you do still need to be careful that it doesn't suddenly take a big hit and really screw you over. Like here, I'm okay. I'm going to do one more cycle of the smart bombs and then I'm going to immediately turn them off, because if I accidentally trigger a smart bomb now, that means wave 3 and we don't want that. So that Emergent Keeper is still very much alive. The Sleepless Sentinels now are getting within range, so I can go to Hail and start shooting at those for a bit more DPS. You can see long reload. Not quite as bad as like a Rapid Heavy or a Rapid Light, but still long enough that it annoys me, it irritates me. Anyway, so we're going to start shooting the Sleepless Sentinels now with Hail. That's doing a lot more damage. It's going to start to rip through those a little bit faster. Once we get to the last one of those ships, you smart bomb into wave 3. That Sleepless Sentinel goes down, leaving just the Emergent Keeper, which means we can reload our weaponry and just smart bomb that Emergent Keeper right the way down. Annoyingly, the smart bombs don't do all that much damage, so they do kind of, you know, keep these things alive for a bit of time. It takes a few whacks to drop them down, but that gives us time to sort of enjoy the skybox of C5s. I love the C5 skybox. It just looks so angry and brutal. C6s are even cooler, to be fair. You know, just they look so aggressive and just nasty. It's also worth just spending this opportunity to look at the Vargur itself. You see how the fins light up? When you activate Bastion mode, the sort of armor plates unfurl from it, light up on the fins there. This big electromagnetic beam shoots out the front, and on the other side, there's like this gigantic furnace that opens up. Right, we are now on to Reinforcement Wave 2, Wave 3. This is 5 cruisers with webs, Awakened Sentinels, 3 cruisers called Awakened Keepers with scrams, webs, and newts, and 3 battleships, Sleepless Sentinels with scrams, webs, and newts. Those are the triggers. Now, ideally here, you want to take out the Awakened Keepers first, because the scrams that they are, the neutralization that they're doing is pretty nasty, and there's 3 of them, so you can take them out they're only cruisers, you can take them out quite quickly. Then you go for the battleships and get those down to just 1 left, clean up everything else, and then finish off that last battleship. Again, you can see a friendly VNI sitting nearby now at this point. One guy sort of half on grid in a safe that's a little bit further away, just because we had a couple of people nearby. I had a Manticore come into system, and it's like, okay, I can't really do anything about that Manticore. I'm just going to have to sit here because Bastion mode had just triggered onto its next cycle. At which point it's like, cool, I've got 60 seconds before I can even initiate warp. If that guy wants to come in and tackle me, there's nothing I can do about it. All I can do is just sit here and hope my friends can come in. I'm just going to keep ratting until such an opportunity arises. So there we go. Otherwise, though, for the rest of this wave, it is literally kill off the keepers. With the keepers dead, go after the sentinels. And you can see I'm doing that in the wrong order because I'm an idiot, too busy talking in voice. I'm going for the sentinels first for some reason. The sentinels are webs. Oh no, who cares that I'm being webbed? I can't move anyway. The NOS, on the other hand, the neutralization, sorry, I keep saying NOS, the neutralization from those keepers is a bit of an issue, and it is going to start affecting me. My capacitor is going to start going down, even though I'm in the drifter refit. Now, the drifter refit does actually give me a little bit of leeway here. Because I've got much more aggressive capacitor than I normally would, I kind of get away with the mistake of not having shot at the keepers first and foremost. You can see I've kind of realized that now, and I'm going after the keepers properly. I also just want to point out how the kind of tank on a Marauder works, because I know it can look scary. You see I take suddenly about like 50% of my shield in one hit, but then very quickly rep it back up. Those big hits are few and far between, and your shield tank is more than capable of supporting those. You do need at least Marauder 4 to make that work. At Marauder 3, you are going to frequently get pushed into armor, and that will chip down, and that can be lethal. Marauder 4 or nothing. Don't even undock until you have at least Marauder 4. Anyway, that's pretty much all there is to say for this wave, so let's skip ahead again. And we come now to the end of the third wave, spawning in the fourth, and this one's not too bad. We have 3 frigates, which are Scram, Web, and Newt. We have 2 cruisers, which are Webbers, and we have 2 battleships that Newt. You can kind of go after these in any order you fancy, because the neutralization is not going to be too bad at this point, since most of it is either on frigates, which are going to die quite quickly to our EMPs, or they're on battleships that are actually going to take a little bit of time to reach us. Although I say that, yeah, no, they do. These ones, this wave does take quite a while to reach. Those Sleepless Keepers keep at range, so we don't have to stress it too much. Ultimately, I'm going to go after the Sentinels first, just because, yeah, they're not even really a threat, but they're close. I'm in hail at the moment, so I may as well keep using hail, and I'm going to use the smart bombs now that those frigates are within range as well, and start to pull those down. Seriously, smart bombs may be my least favorite thing to, you know, encounter when flying through low sec. I do think it's a lazy form of PvP, but for PvE, my goodness, if they're not one of the coolest things ever. Really, really useful for this kind of content. You can see those frigates are going down pretty comfortably. We're okay with that. The Awakened Sentinel is getting shot at again. I really wish I had a tracking computer. That would have gone down so much faster. Turn the smart bombs off. Go after the other Awakened Sentinel. Then we're going to swap to Barrage to take out those Sleepless Keepers. At this point, I'm actually making another huge mistake. I'm launching the Mobile Depot and the Mobile Tractor Unit because I'm thinking, cool, well, I'm nearly at the end, and I need to, you know, get the stuff I need, right? I need to be able to do the refit. No, I don't need the refit. I'm in the refit, which is stupid, so I didn't need to drop the Mobile Depot at all. And the Mobile Tractor Unit is going to pull in all of the wrecks. And with all of those wrecks nearby, I can't drop and anchor the Mobile Medium Warp Disruptor 2. That's going to be a huge problem, because it means I can't put up the bubble that is going to hold the Drifter battleship in place. I've lost a Golem, and I've lost a Vargur to making this exact same mistake, and then trying to drift forwards out of the 5-kilometer range, and ending up just taking too much damage, because obviously Bastion mode has to be turned off. And you might be thinking, well, hang on, Benzie, then all you need to do is just do that, you know, turn off Bastion mode and drift the 5 kilometers away before triggering the drifter. Like, you have to manually trip the drifter, right? You have to manually trigger it. Yeah, you do. And you trigger it by shooting the decloaked transmission array, which you may have noticed I'm currently doing, despite still being right next to my Mobile Tractor Unit and everything else. Yeah, I've just realized my mistake. Oh no, I'm right next to everything. Can I scoop that up? And no, still the wrecks. Still the wrecks. Yeah, what an idiot. Anyway, we are using the phased plasma now. See, I'm still trying here to launch for self. Can't be launched within 5,000 meters of any wreck. Oh well, let's at least showcase this and show what an idiot I am, because this is where I messed up repeatedly. I'm now looking at those wrecks and thinking, well, can you destroy them? Can you destroy those wrecks? And, you know, so I've got everything active, and I'm going to try and use the EMP smart bombs, and, well, look at my capacitor. The problem with this Vargur fit is that you need to have high capacitor before triggering that drifter battleship. Because if you don't have high capacitor, due to how your capacitor recharge works, with the recharge rate maxing out as it approaches 25%, sorry, and then the recharge rate decreasing as it goes beyond 25%, you kind of need your capacitor to be as high as possible for this. Otherwise, it is going to nute you out, and yeah. I have tried activating smart bombs to get rid of these wrecks. I've got the shield booster running between waves. You can see my capacitor is just about holding at the moment because I'm sitting close to my capacitor recharge. But as a spoiler alert, it simply is not enough. So it's now time to share my pain. You'll just notice there that my capacitor has finally hit 0, which means my extra large shield booster no longer has the ability to run. And I'm still taking mad amounts of damage from the Arithmos Tyrannos. Yeah, this is not going to go well. I'm going to have to sit here and wait for that to recharge a little bit, manually activate it once, and see how that holds. And the short answer is, it simply doesn't. Because when you are below 25% capacitor, your capacitor just gets weaker and weaker. It takes a long time to recharge to 25%, and then it's a little bit faster for a while as it then goes... You know, the rate decreases again as you increase from 25% capacitor up beyond that. So now you can share my pain. I have no ability to keep my shields active. That thing is hitting me. I've gone through my armor. I've gone through my hull. All I can do now is ready my frigate escape and make a runaway for it. And I do actually need to do a video on frigate escape bays as well. But bye-bye Vargur. There we go. All because your pilot was an idiot. Can this fit run this? Yes, I've killed 4 or 5 of those Arithmos Tyrannos using this exact Vargur fit. You just have to make sure that you stop for a while and let your capacitor completely recharge before you trigger the wave. Of course, you do also need to make sure that the mobile warp disruptor is anchored and ready to go as well. Unfortunately, I can be a complete moron sometimes, and that's a 3 billion ISK ship that I have just lost because I did not think things through before activating the final wave. I got too excited and completely screwed it up. Oh look, there's a buzzard on the hull here. Yeah, oh well. Anyway, I'm headed off home, tail between my legs. I will go and get my cheetah, come back and grab the loot. I've bookmarked the mobile tractor unit. I should be able to salvage quite a bit of my wreckage as well. Any of the modules that dropped I'll bring back, which means it's going to be a little bit quicker and easier to bring that Vargur back again. And that is exactly what I've done. I have that Vargur back, she's sitting in my dock, and I do promise that eventually I will get around to showcasing one of these sites properly from start to finish without me being an idiot. But I thought it made for entertaining content to see that the ship can run the core garrison even if you're in the wrong fit, and that, well, yeah, if you're an idiot you'll lose a 3 billion ISK ship. I like to make my mistakes public so that you guys can learn from them. A smart man learns from his mistakes, a wise man learns from other people. Or so I'm told. I'm clearly neither. Anyway, I do also want to give a brief shout out toward the end of this video to Ashy from Ashy in Space. Excellent blog from the Foxhole Incorporation. She has written up some absolutely fantastic guides. Unfortunately, that website has now gone down due to some rather unfortunate events. A lot of people being very aggressive and very nasty to her. So she has taken that blog offline. This fit was modified from her old Vargur fit. I don't actually know if she ever got around to updating that after Viridian came out and the high slot and low slot layout changed. But ultimately, this is what I settled on based on her original Vargur fit. And it seems to work pretty well, as long as you don't fly it like a moron. Anyway, on that final note as well, if any of you are going to be up at FanFest this year, 2023's FanFest between the 21st and 24th of September, I will be up there myself, so I would love to say hi to you all. Come say hi if you see me. I'll probably be wearing a load of like cat skull stuff, or you can just look up what a photo of me looks like. Haven't decided if I'm going to take the captain's hat yet. Let me know in the comments if you think I should. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching this one right the way through to the end. Happy sailing, and see you in New Eden!